Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. Separating signal from the noise.
The main thing was nothing happened. The attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified.
All right, separating signal from the noise. That is what we will do throughout the hour here on the Hill tonight. But tonight, the questions also continue about Signal, the encrypted messaging app used by the national security team to discuss strikes inside Yemen. And there was an unquestioned statement from the president today. Not necessarily that he says none of the information in a text thread that was shared by a journalist unknowingly was unclassified. Rather, this. Inviting the cameras, would you look at that? Inviting the cameras into a meeting, making sure that his national security advisor, Michael Waltz, was sitting right there. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Those questions today also the focus of a hearing up on Capitol Hill today, already pre-scheduled with the CIA director and director of national intelligence.
Director Radcliffe, this was a huge mistake, correct?
No.
That wasn't a huge mistake?
Well, I think they characterized it as
embarrassment.
A mistake.
This is utterly unprofessional. There's been no apology.
We are live from the White House and up on Capitol Hill in moments. Also tonight is an executive order about to be in the works that could target sanctuary cities. President Trump suggesting that is possibly right around the corner. Plus,
You made some headlines with the hire of David Grusch.
Yeah.
Why'd you do it? Why'd you feel the need to do it?
I think that just it's frustrating to me that we can't continue to just not really get any further.
I spent some of the day up on the Hill talking to that man right there, Congressman Eric Burlison, about what he thinks the UFO whistleblower David Grusch can now accomplish now that he's set to be a government employee working for the congressman. My full interview with Eric Burlison later in the hour here on the Hill. But first tonight, what the president has described as the only glitch. Our Kelly Meyer live tonight at a White House that is now pushing back. Kelly?
Yeah, that's right, pushing back. And President Trump saying, quote, it's just something that can happen. He said that of the journalist being inadvertently added to a group chat with top administration officials, Blake. This is something that the president was talking about in his meeting with top officials. The president was shutting down any rumors of giving his national security advisor the boot, saying he is, quote, a very good man and will continue to do a good job.
I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect.
So President Trump turned the attention then on the journalist and said everyone is making a big deal out of this because he had a good 2 months, he said. Mike Waltz essentially calling the reporting, quote, lies, despite the National Security Council just yesterday saying the messages seemed, quote, authentic.
This one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room.
So the president said he does support an investigation. President Trump said today there was no classified information in the chat, but when pressed why the White House is saying the information was not classified, the president said, quote, next question. Blake?
All right, our Kelly Meyer live on the North Lawn tonight. Kelly, thank you. So as the president defended his administration, there were more questions up on Capitol Hill today. The FBI director, Kash Patel, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, the CIA director, John Radcliffe, all testifying before the Senate. Directors Radcliffe and Gabbard were among the members in that Signal group chat. Gabbard said that classified information was not shared.
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then
Signal
if there's no
chat.
classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways.
CIA Director John Radcliffe had an exchange with Senator Michael Bennet, who is now calling for the national security team to do better.
This sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect for our intelligence agencies and the personnel who work for them is entirely unacceptable. It's an embarrassment.
Joining me now live from Capitol Hill, Congressional reporter Michael Schnell. Michael, hello, good evening. The reality here is And we should note this scheduled hearing was already on the books to talk about intelligence threats and threats to the homeland, right? And man, the timing with all of this. But one of the other realities is Republicans run Washington. So for all the talk of Democrats saying resignations, hearings, so on and so forth, that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah, look, Blake, we're hearing a lot of reaction up here on Capitol Hill from Democrats and Republicans, but the main point is you're right. We are right now living in a Republican-controlled Washington. We've heard a number of lawmakers say that they don't think that there should be repercussions for Hegseth or Waltz based on what happened, though there is a possibility here that we could see some investigation. Senator Roger Wicker, he's the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, a Republican representing Mississippi. He said yesterday that he believes that there should be an investigation into what happened and that will take place with the House and the Senate. We also heard from Senator John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, who says that the Senate will run this to the ground to understand what happened. But Blake, when we take it a step further and we talk about potential repercussions here, it seems unlikely at this moment. We have heard from President Trump, who has said that he has support for Pete Hegseth and for Mike Waltz in the wake of this situation. Now, I will note, as you had mentioned, Blake, this hearing had been on the books for a while. It had been scheduled for a while. It's a yearly event where the Senate and the House discuss threats to the U.S. homeland. But as you said, this one was unique and contentious in that it focused largely on this Signal group chat that has been shaking Washington since the news broke in The Atlantic yesterday. Now, when we talk about what the fallout could be, it's already ramping up. During that hearing earlier today, we heard Senator Mark Warner, he's the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, call on Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz to resign. Also, just minutes ago, we heard from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He wrote a letter to President Trump saying he should fire Hegseth and Waltz. Now, look, Blake, this was a big day today on Capitol Hill, but we're actually going to see it happen all over again tomorrow. The House Intelligence Committee holding its worldwide threats hearing, and and Gabbard and Radcliffe are both slated to appear. Blake.
Round one today, round two tomorrow, or Michael Schnell will be there for it again. Michael Schnell, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Also this evening, 370 illegal immigrants now in U.S. custody after a series of government raids in Boston. President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, says the majority arrested in the six-day operation are, quote, significant criminals. They are now facing charges, including murder and drug trafficking. Tonight, could the White House soon be targeting sanctuary cities? President Trump today suggesting an executive order could soon be coming.
They're guarding criminals. They're taking the rights away from the citizens of this state and their city. And we're going to be ending sanctuary cities if we find it necessary to do in certain major areas. And we may just end the entire thing altogether because it's just a way of protecting criminals. And nobody else is benefited by that.
There are sanctuary cities and states all across the country. The status protects undocumented immigrants from federal immigration laws, deportation, maybe even prosecution. Our Allie Bradley, live once again down along the southern border, Del Rio, Texas tonight. Allie, that was a bit of news from the president. There were all these questions, of course, about Signal, and he just sort of slipped out there, or at least when asked about it, yeah, this executive order might be coming.
Yeah, exactly, Blake. And it's not the first time that we've heard President Trump say something like that. Back in October at a rally in Madison Square Garden, he said he was going to ban sanctuary cities across the nation, taking it one step further today, saying that executive order could be coming to end those policies. And this all comes as ICE has recently been calling out some major sanctuary cities for not complying and not working with them and playing ball. So right now you're looking at a video here of ICE chasing after a Tren de Aragua member who was released from the jail there that was did not notify ICE of his release. And in this apprehension, an ICE officer was actually assaulted, according to the agency. And then the city of Aurora, that's right next to Denver, that has essentially become the TDA hub. You'll remember the viral video there where there were armed men walking through that apartment complex, and the mayor and the governor then saying it was a figment of the imagination, so kind of protecting those individuals. And then we want to show you these guys busted in California. One of the individuals was actually on the run for suspected murder in Chicago, which is, again, a sanctuary city. And then in Boston, an illegal immigrant immigrant from Uganda. He was actually charged in Massachusetts with assault and battery of a pregnant woman. Now, ICE did lodge a detainer against him, but it was not honored. He was released from custody, Blake. So this all comes as the House Oversight Committee. They actually launched an investigation into these sanctuary cities. They had mayors from New York, Chicago, and Denver all testifying earlier this month. Representative James Comer saying, follow the law or suffer the consequences, calling for an end to that funding. Blake?
Our Allie Bradley, live once again, Del Rio, Texas, along the southern border tonight. Allie, thank you. All right, still to come tonight. Here from the Hill, Congress searches for the truth. What's out there?
You don't know which questions to ask, right? And so how do you even determine where to go if you don't even have the first clue?
So I was up on the Hill today talking to Congressman Eric Burleson. We're speaking with him because he has just brought David Grusch, the UFO whistleblower, on board. What does the congressman believe Grusch will bring to them now? I ask him and show you that later on the show. Plus, pressure from Democrats. They're calling for resignations in the wake of the whole Signal controversy. Should there be punishment? What might they want? One of the top Democrats, ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, with me here on the Hill. And as the Education Department gets dismantled, there is one substitute teacher who found his way from the classroom into the New York Yankees lineup. I'll explain. Welcome to Washington. This is the center of politics. I'm Blake Berman. You're watching The Hill tonight. We're back in 4 minutes. I'm Blake Berman, and you're listening to NewsNation, news for all America. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to joinnn.com. Welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. The president and his national security advisor in the same room together, right before the cameras, as the questions mount. The commander-in-chief saying today there wasn't any classified information in a text message thread about strikes against the Houthis, and also touted the encrypted messaging app Signal.
We always want to use the best technology. This was the best technology for the moment. But again, it wasn't classified. I don't know if it's been read out to you yet, but that attack was a tremendous success for the U.S.
The National Security Advisor, Michael Waltz, is believed to have included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic into a group thread about military strikes. That thread included the vice president and cabinet secretaries. In a meeting today alongside the commander-in-chief, Waltz claimed the revelation is a distraction.
The media wants to talk about everything else except for the hostages you're getting out of the Middle East, Iran on its back foot, sea lanes getting reopened, peace in Europe, as we just saw today with a Black Sea ceasefire.
Many Democrats want hearings and resignations. Congressman Adam Smith is the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. He called for an explanation from the president, and the congressman joins us live. Congressman Smith, always great to have you. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Thanks for the chance.
Of course. So you said you wanted to hear from the president. You just heard from the president. We all did earlier today. He said it was the best technology for the moment, and the information was not classified. Are you satisfied with what you heard?
He's wrong about the first point. Clearly, Signal was not the best technology to have a highly sensitive conversation about targeting data in advance of a strike. There are all kinds of secure networks available to the White House. I know. I've done these types of classified calls with the White House before that are vastly more secure than the Signal app. And that is 100% clear from the fact that a reporter for The Atlantic wound up on the group chat.
Right.
There have been many efforts to try to break into the Signal app, and many of them have been successful. So one, no, not the best technology to use in this particular situation. And second, the information that was shared was in advance of these strikes, a couple hours in advance. The precise targets, the ordnance that was going to be used, and the timing. If that information isn't classified, it should be. So I am not satisfied with the answers that we got out of the president or the National Security Advisor today.
So you say it should have been, but if the president says it wasn't at the time, I guess those are sort of two different things, right? Do you take him at his word, though? Let's set should have been aside. Do you take him at his word that it wasn't classified?
I don't know yet. Look, I've heard Donald Trump lie often enough that the answer to the question, do I take him at his word, is always no. absolutely not. Now, might he be telling the truth? He might be. So we should take a look and see what the classification was. And also we got to figure out who was in charge of doing that classification. I believe it was the Secretary of Defense in this context. And it's possible that he made the incredibly poor decision that sensitive targeting information in advance of a strike wasn't classified. It's quite possible he made that decision, but then I want to know why he thinks that was the right decision on something this important and this sensitive. So yes, this should be investigated by Congress. It should be investigated by the House and Senate Armed Services Committee.
Do you think that you're going to get that, though?
Answers.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to get that? Because at the end of the day, it's Republicans who control the Hill.
Yeah, well, look, that's the sad part about it. And I said this earlier today. You know, when Secretary Austin did not tell people about his illness and was gone for a couple of days in an unexplained way, we investigated, and I supported that. The Republicans were in charge at the time. We did the investigation. Secretary Austin came over and testified before the House Armed Services Committee on exactly what happened. That level of accountability is appropriate, and it should be bipartisan. But I take your point. In this environment, with Donald Trump governing the way he is, in an autocratic, unaccountable fashion, probably not. But the American people should demand this. We need a level of accountability, and the White House continuing to act like rules don't apply to them is troubling and leads to dangerous situations like this one.
So the president, the commander-in-chief, and Michael Waltz spoke inside the White House today. There was also a much different scene up on the Hill where you are, sir, and that was Kash Patel, really nothing to do with this, Tulsi Gabbard, and John Ratcliffe, the director of national intelligence, the CIA director, testifying. Here was John Ratcliffe earlier today. I want to get your reaction on the other side, and this relates to Signal, the app.
Signal is a permissible use.
I understand
that. The CIA has been approved by the White House for senior officials.
And appropriate for many conversations.
And recommended by CISA for high-level officials who would be targeted by foreign adversaries to use end-to-end encrypted apps whenever possible, like Signal.
He basically says it's okay to use. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, well, no. I mean, two quick points. Well, sure, Signal is okay to use. I use it myself. I have a number of different group chats going, but not for this type of sensitive information. I don't set up a Signal group chat to discuss sensitive information about targeted attacks on Yemen or any place else. So that's really a non-answer. Yeah, you can use Signal, sure. Nowhere in the CIA, I would hasten to add, does it say you can go ahead and use the Signal app for this type of information. So that's a non-answer dodge. And one quick point about Kash Patel, you said he doesn't have anything to do with this. The Justice Department regularly investigates this type of a breach of sensitive information, so the Justice Department should have something to do with
I was alluding to the fact that that he wasn't in this group chat, but I hear you. Let me leave you with this, Congressman. You mentioned Lloyd Austin, because Lloyd Austin, the former defense secretary, misled the president. You said you were in favor of testimony and he of a investigation, and you mentioned how he testified. I don't know if you called on Lloyd Austin to resign at the time or not. What was your view then, and what is your view now on Pete Hegseth?
I did not, and I'm not called on Pete Hegseth to resign either. Now, I will say I didn't think he should have got the job in the first place, because he's not qualified. He had not run anything in the Pentagon before. He had no managerial experience whatsoever, and that is what this incident shows. For him to say, oh, well, what are you talking about? We just had a conversation on a Signal app. What's the problem? Shows a level of operational ignorance that anyone with any experience in the Pentagon or even running one of these operations in the field would just go, are you kidding me? He thinks there's no problem with this? There's a problem with this.
We'll leave it there. Adam Smith is the ranking member, the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. With us tonight here on the Hill. Congressman, thank you.
Thanks.
Talk soon. All right, still much more ahead tonight here on the Hill. On the other side of the break, there's a lot of folks in Congress who want to know, are we alone?
I do think that we're going to find out some more information. The question is, will we get to that point where it's definitive that this is, we determine what it is?
Secrets, investigations, UFOs. I'm going to be talking to that man right there. Spoke to him earlier today, Congressman Eric Burlison. Here's why I went up to the Hill to talk to him. David Grusch, the UFO whistleblower, now on his staff. What does he want from Grusch? We asked him, and he came to Washington armed with a chainsaw. Now Elon Musk bringing robots to the Hill. When we return.
You're listening to The Hill on NewsNation's audio stream. Available 24/7 on the NewsNation app. Or just say, Alexa, play NewsNation.
Just about 6:30 here in Washington. Live look right now over at the White House, where President Trump pardoned an ex-business partner of Hunter Biden. Devin Archer was found guilty back in 2008 for his role in a fraudulent bond scheme.
I looked at the records, studied the records, and he was a victim of a crime, as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to undo that.
Archer was sentenced to a year and a day in prison. He accused the Biden family of being behind his prosecution. Other side of Pennsylvania Avenue, up on Capitol Hill, another show by Elon Musk. This time, though, nothing to do with Doge. Axios reporting tonight that Tesla is preparing to display its humanoid robot there. Tesla will be participating in a robotics symposium tomorrow. The automaker plans to build some 5,000 Optimus robots by the end of the year. All right, now for anyone who is wondering what's in our skies, or well beyond that. Some lawmakers hope a new hire in Washington will help bring transparency on UFOs. You might remember the whistleblower David Grusch took much of the world by storm 2 years ago after sharing stunning revelations about an alleged UFO crash retrieval program. His allegations sparked congressional hearings. Well, now Grusch has a new job, advising the Missouri Republican Congressman Eric Burleson on UAPs, or UFOs as they're known. I spoke with Congressman Burleson earlier today about the hire and what he hopes we, all of us, can learn about what's out there.
Congressman?
Yeah.
You made some headlines with the hire of David Grusch.
Yeah.
Why'd you do it? Why'd you feel the need to do it?
I think that just it's frustrating to me that we can't continue to just not really get any further. And so one of the things that was highlighted to me really is that, or obvious to me, is that we don't have somebody that's an expert in this field helping us navigate the intelligence community, navigate these, because the thing is, you don't know which questions to ask, right? And so how do you even determine where to go if you don't even have the first clue?
So how did the idea come about? Oh, well, Grusch says he knows some things. Let's bring him in.
Yeah. Well, first, just meeting him and having him come in for the first hearing, that was really, I thought that he was a very credible witness. And while I may not, I'm a skeptic. I may not agree that these are aliens from another planet. But I certainly do not doubt or discount his reputation. He is highly credible, highly respected, and he certainly was in the right roles. And so I think he was his credentials are amazing. And just having him as an asset to be able to help us navigate and plan and coordinate where to go from here is really what I wanted to get accomplished.
So he's going to be is currently working for you, or will be?
April 1.
April 1, okay. So what are the things that he can do then that you can't necessarily believe that you could do right now?
Yeah, one is that, it's the amount of time. So getting him committed and on where he's able to provide counsel to me. He's putting together a plan that we'll be able to execute and then work alongside, really through my office, work to try to get some more information out through the committee staff and other things. But at the end of the day, he's working for my staff, and so that has to be kind of the parameters. He can't work for the committee. He's working for me.
So he's now going to be working for you. Obviously, one of the different dynamics here is this whole, the questions and the investigations and the hearings and all that started in the Biden administration, right? President Biden, the defense secretary was Lloyd Austin. It's obviously a much different time right now. Pete Hegseth is the defense secretary over at the Pentagon. Have you talked to the secretary about this? The Aero office is over there at the Pentagon. Have you talked to him yet about this? What about now in the new administration?
Well, I don't have a direct line with Pete. I'm going to try to get that connection.
But you see where I'm going, right?
Because what is good about Grusch is he does have direct connections with a lot of these individuals. And so he's got connections with Tulsi and a lot of other individuals that I think would be very valuable.
What about it now with President Trump in the White House? How does this change?
You know, he's a disclosure president. He has clearly demonstrated that he wants to be transparent. He's already released more of the JFK files than anyone else has, and he's really pushing to release more, trying to release the Epstein list, trying to release the information that the American people deserve to know about UAPs.
So let me leave you with this. Do you think now that David Grusch is soon going to be on your staff here in a few days, that eventually, whether it be a few weeks, a few months, whatever it is, that there's going to be an aha moment? See, this is something we didn't know about. Do you think that's coming?
I do think that we're going to find out some more information. The question is, will we get to that point where it's definitive that this is, we determine what it is? That I can't answer for you.
And when you approached Grusch on this, what was his response?
He was very open to the idea. He really just wants to serve his country. If you look at his background, he's somebody that just loves this nation and wants to, has a servant heart.
All right, we'll leave it there. Congressman Burleson, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Myself, Congressman Eric Burleson, earlier this afternoon. Look who we have now. Ross Coulthart, NewsNation special correspondent, host of Reality Check. Ross, as you know, was the one who blew this wide open with David Grusch a couple years ago. Good on you, sir, to be here with us tonight. So you were just watching all that with me. I spoke to Burleson, Congressman, a few hours ago. What'd you make of what you just heard there, Ross? And do you think it was a smart move for the congressman to do this?
Firstly, good evening, Blake. I think it's a great move, and I really commend the congressman for bringing David on board. I know David's excited to get his teeth into the issue, and there's nothing quite like being in the Congress to be able to get in the ear of different Congress people and indeed senators to try and word them up to know what to ask for. One of the complications with this whole UAP issue is that we're up against a very determined disinformation campaign where, frankly, some people in the Pentagon and the intelligence community, not all, by the way, some people are very open, some people don't want this story told. And David's there to tell this story because, frankly, he's a patriot. As Representative Burleson there explained, David loves his country. And I notice Representative Burleson serves, as well as the Oversight Committee, he also serves on the DOGE Committee. He's very much in favour of trimming government budgets. If it's true that there is this unaccountable multi-billion-dollar legacy program that's retrieving craft and spending billions of dollars of your taxpayer money on it, I would have thought DOGE would want to have a look at it too, and I'm sure David Grusch will be helping him.
Yeah, that's why I asked him about the current administration, right? Because when all this started, it was a different administration. So I hear you and your view of, maybe there's some folks inside the Pentagon who don't want information getting out there. Well, now there's a new Secretary of Defense and a new Commander-in-Chief, right? So that's why I was getting to him. Does any of this change now that Pete Hegseth is running the show there? And I wonder if there is going to be an aha moment, Ross, in your view, now that Grusch is on board.
We certainly hope so. I can tell you, Donald Trump has said things in the past that indicate he's open to declassifying UAP files. But one thing he has not done, he has signed executive orders for Epstein, JFK, MLK, RFK, and he's ordered those files to be progressively declassified. He hasn't done that yet with the UAP files. And that's a huge question mark. Why has the president not followed up with his promise to be more open with disclosure on UAPs? Have the intelligence community got the president around their little finger? That's the issue.
So that's the White House. Up on Congress, there's going to be more hearings here. And the sense that I get, Ross, in talking to lawmakers is they think that Grusch can help them ask the right questions because at the end of the day, they come from a different background and not this stuff. So when there are more hearings, do we learn more?
Well, I'm a little bit sceptical, Blake, because frankly, David Grusch has already given the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Senate Armed Services Committee, and the House committees all of the evidence that he has. He's told them where to look, where to go. Okay. At the moment, certainly under the Biden administration, there wasn't a great deal of momentum. The ball is now in President Trump's court. He has to follow up with his promises.
Ross Coulthart, you said good evening to me. I think it might be very early where you are. So I appreciate you, sir. Hope you have a great day. Talk to you again soon. Ross Coulthart, thank you. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
You got it. All right, still to come here on the Hill. Will sanctuary cities be coming to an end? What President Trump said about that today in the middle of a major story elsewhere. Plus fireworks up on Capitol Hill as intelligence officials and senators face off.
It's an embarrassment.
Senator,
you need to do better. You need to do better.
So should top defense leaders get a second chance after a reporter was added onto a group thread with a whole lot of important folks? Full panel, other side. You're watching The Hill.
NewsNation tonight. Convicted and then acquitted of murder. Amanda Knox sits down with Ashley Banfield, her life inside an Italian prison, and what freedom means to her now. Banfield tonight, 10/9 Central, only on NewsNation.
I'm Ashley Banfield, and you're listening to America's fastest growing cable news network, NewsNation. News for all America.
No classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use.
All right, so President Trump just a little while ago from the White House trying to reassure that the inadvertently linked national security intelligence in a group chat that included the Atlantic journalist Jeffrey Goldberg did not contain any classified information. There was also this moment from the hearing up on Capitol Hill earlier today in which the Director of National Security, Tulsi Gabbard, would say the same.
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there's no
chat.
classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways.
Full panel here with me now. T.W. Rigi is a former communications aide to Senator Lindsey Graham. Scott Bolden, NewsNation political contributor. So too is Denise Gitsom, NewsNation political contributor. Dan Cannon, former Battleground States Director for the Biden and Harris campaigns. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. I like all of you.
Start with the Republicans.
So I enjoy my company with all of you. But here's what I know what's going to happen. The Democrats are going to say, ha ha, you did this to Hillary, you all are incompetent. And the Republicans are going to say, okay, no harm, no foul, no classified information. Am I wrong? Nobody's challenging that. All right, so let's move on. Here's what I noticed today. What I noticed today was in the first administration, Donald Trump, Michael Flynn was out, the national security advisor, within a month. The deputy was out within 3 months. Gone. Denise, he had Mike Waltz sit there, invited the media in so that they could pan over to him and that he could answer some questions today. And it was Trump, I thought, basically saying, that's my guy, and you guys are not going to bully me one way or the other.
Yeah, and you saw him do that with Pete Hegseth and all these people we thought were impossible gets over the finish line. He is unstoppable right now, not only because of his popularity, which, goes up and down, but it's pretty solid.
You say not unstoppable, but stuff like this, I mean, he did call it a glitch today.
But he should. I mean, shouldn't you admit it? Everyone wants a little more honesty from Washington. It's unavoidable. The reality is it was an embarrassing mistake, right? Somebody should take responsibility for it, and I think that's eventually going to happen. But right now, he doesn't actually have to, because the way the Democrats are making a mountain out of something, and this is so predictable. I'm sorry to be such a cliche.
I knew, but I know what's coming.
Yeah, but it's kind of, we didn't lose 14 people, at Abbey Gate. And when you think about the things that Democrats have done in the past that have actually cost American service members' lives and actual real implications, to say that something like this was like a bigger deal is kind of nonsense.
We don't know, though, what the implications of this are. What we understand it happened is CENTCOM, career military commanders, go into a secure facility and brief the Secretary of Defense on not just classified information, but an ongoing military operation with our troops in a secure facility where you can't bring any phone in, government or otherwise. He walks out, Pete Hegseth, picks up his personal phone, gets a free app you can download on the internet, and then texts a bunch of other civilian leaders in the government all the information. This is stuff that's monitored by our adversaries. It's evidence to our allies that we can't keep secrets. Why would they give us the secrets and trust us with that? And Pete Hegseth has a record of incompetence at every organization he's been at. He was never qualified for this job, and this kind of recklessness proves it.
So the president comes out and says today that there's no classified information. Take him at his word?
Yes, it's become a he said sort of situation, and we'll see which way it plays out. I would quarrel with your Pete Hegseth is fully unqualified. We can go into the history of cabinet nomination for a long time here. But yes, this is a massive screw up, and I think like most Americans, I was wondering then who was the Jeff G, the Jeff Gold, whatever suffix you'd like. I don't think Jeff Goldblum is in national security, but it's a massive operational security problem, and it's a screw up. We got to own it and move on.
So here was I'm coming to you.
Exhibit number one.
Speaking of exhibit number one, I'm coming to you next, counsel. Here was Michael Waltz today. Let's go to element number 3. Michael Waltz today inside the room with the president.
Mr. President, you asked about lessons. I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president. This one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room.
I can't imagine what the discussions over at the Atlantic were like if you were advising them and advising Jeffrey Goldberg. Should he have come up forward and said, hey guys, I'm here?
Well, no, he wouldn't have said that. Once he confirmed that this was a real conversation, and at some point he got off the call, and I'm sure his next call was to his editor-in-chief and his general counsel. But there's a broader issue here. The media is covering this because this is what you get when you pick loyalty over competence, right? It really is. And the worst part about this isn't what's been said at this table. The worst part is there were 7 to 10 very qualified people, the group, if you will.
Every cabinet member is loyal.
They can
Joe Biden had loyalists. Barack Obama had loyalists. The next president
But no one on that phone call, this is the point I make, no one on that phone call said, who is the reporter or who is the number or the initials that no one knew? And are we really doing this on Signal? Okay. And you see, that's when you don't know what you don't know.
I've got 2 minutes left, and here's what I want to move on to, because there were lots of headlines today, right? Lots of questions in the room, and I'm watching all this, and I go, wait a minute. Did the president just make some news here? Roll it.
They're guarding criminals. They're taking the rights away from the citizens of this state and their city, and we're going to be ending sanctuary cities if we find it necessary to do in certain major areas, and we may just end the entire thing altogether because it's just a way of protecting criminals, and nobody else is benefited by that.
Ending sanctuary cities, executive order, what's that going to look like?
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Look, I ran for Congress.
What can he do? What can he do, though?
That is a super sanctuary city. He can pull the federal funding. This is as much of a political posture as it is anything else. He's going to do whatever he can to lay it down for the
then what happens when he says Democrats? Okay, you saw what happened with the election. We've seen what's happened over at the southern border. I'm going to do this. I dare you to challenge me.
He wants to change the conversation, Blake. This is what he's done all year on immigration and on these issues on crime. The economy's not going well. Tariffs are a disaster. Inflation is high. He's got RFK Jr. getting a measles outbreak off the ground. He's got this national security problem with Pete Hegseth and with the entire cabinet now. And every time we have these moments, it's squirrel. He's going back to the thing that really works for him, and what works for Republicans right now is immigration, partly because Democrats left the door open, I'll say that.
Deportation is not new with this administration. They've been doing it since day one. The administration needs the authority to go into local jails in these cities and pick up criminals before they get back into our communities and commit more crime. He's been saying that since day one. Tom Homan's been saying that it needs to be delivered.
Sanctuary city. Legally, an executive order is not going to shut down sanctuary cities because immigration is a federal issue. The sanctuary city status simply says that we're not going to cooperate with the feds when they come looking for these individuals.
We'll see
what a big difference.
We'll see.
Executive order won't change that.
We'll see what happens. We'll see if he tries to go at the money, which I guess would be part of this.
And the judiciary will step in again.
All right. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Still to come. Other side of the break. How a former substitute teacher, former Uber driver ended up
on the roster of the New York Yankees? I'm going to explain. And coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, UAPs, unidentified drones. Again, the focus on Capitol Hill. Elizabeth talking to the first active duty pilot to come forward about his experience. 7 o'clock Eastern here on News Nation. I'm back other side of the break.
I'm Leland Vittert, and you're listening to America's fastest growing cable news network, News Nation. News for all America.
All right, time for my take now. There are all sorts of political conversations about President Trump's decision, an executive order to wind down the Department of Education. Now, anytime a multi-billion-dollar operation is gutted and reformed, there will be consequences. We just don't know yet if they will be positive or negative, and however you view the issue probably determines whether you think they're positive or negative, or maybe a mix of both. And while the department gets a whole lot of focus, at the end of the day, it's likely going to be the teachers who help shape the lives of kids. One of the former teachers just made some news of his own. J.C. Esquera, a former substitute teacher who was also driving an Uber for some time to make ends meet, just learned that he made the New York Yankees 2025 roster. And the moment he broke the news to his mother was caught on video.
¿Qué, Mom? Acabo de hablar con Boom. Vamos para Nueva York. Se cumplió el sueño.
All the good feels there. Now, at one time, if you were living in the Miami area and had kids, Esquera could have been in a classroom with them. You probably never heard of him then, but know his story now. So here's a reminder. As the future of the Department of Education is highly talked about here in this town and politicized, there are certainly big consequences for whatever happens there. But it's the teachers who are the everyday heroes. And now one of them is batter up in the Bronx, about to sport the famed Yankee pinstripes. And that's my take. We thank you for watching us here on the Hill tonight. We hope you see us tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern, right back here in Washington. It was a fascinating day. That hearing up on Capitol Hill with the Director of National Intelligence and the head of the CIA, round 2 coming again tomorrow as the White House has questions to answer.